This video is sponsored by War Thunder. In 1964, the US Army conducted the first major bombing of North Vietnam, and a year later, a full-scale war against the Communists began. What happened next is well known. The landing, the Marines, the triumph of the Cobras, napalm, and tens and hundreds of thousands of casualties on various sides. But few people know that before all this, the US Army conducted a very unusual bombardment, during which they scattered these strange pistols all over Vietnam. The operation took place in strict secrecy and was led by the CIA, so it wasn't known about for years. What was the trickery of such an operation? Why did these guns look like garden sprinklers? And why were they dropped into communist-controlled territory? So, the preparation for this unusual bombing in the United States began long before its implementation. Back in the 50s, the task was set to develop a special type of gun, and 10 years later, this project was brought to the final stage. This is how the pistol called Deer Gun appeared. Its development was so secret that the CIA even entrusted it to a company that did not deal with weapons at all. Thus, the AMF company, which produced various products from yachts and bicycles to nuclear reactors, took on the task of creating the gun. Even the name Deer Gun was deliberately chosen to associate the gun with hunting, in order to conceal its real purpose. Why did the gun have such a strange appearance? It looked more like a garden sprayer or glue gun than a military weapon. The answer lies in its very design. The Deer Gun was built on the basis of two main criteria: simplicity and cheapness, and the CIA has succeeded in fulfilling that idea. But before we go on, let me introduce War Thunder, the sponsor of today's video. It's the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made, with more than 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships from 10 major nations at hand. You can go all the way from the first M2 tanks to modern Leopards and T-90s. Each vehicle is thoroughly detailed down to the smallest components, so when it's hit, it doesn't just lose some of its hit points. Its parts like engine and gun, as well as its crew, take realistic damage. The X-ray vision mode even allows you to see the damage you've done to the enemy. Join an army of over 70 million players and take part in epic PvP battles for free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and mobile devices. Follow the link in the description or pinned comment, register, and receive a massive bonus package. The exclusive vehicle decorator, Eagle of Valor, 100,000 silver lions, 7 days of a premium account, and many more gifts. All this is available not only to new players, but also to those who haven't played in 6 months. This is a time-limited offer, so don't miss it. The Deer Gun doesn't even have a magazine. To reload, you had to unscrew the barrel, put a cartridge in it, and screw it back on. Then, to cock the gun, you had to pull the lever on the back of the gun. Before that, you have to remove the clutch that acts as a safety from the lever. The gun body itself is made of heavy metal with a minimum of parts. It's designed as primitive as possible. By the way, getting the cartridge casing out after firing was just something. For this purpose, there was a rubber plug in the grip of the pistol, inside of which there was a small chamfer. This was used to knock the casing out of the unscrewed barrel. But why did the US Army bomb Vietnam with these strange guns before the full-scale war? The fact is that at that point, the US government had no plans to enter the conflict directly. They were determined to end the war through supporting the South Vietnamese army, and this operation was one way to provide the necessary assistance. So, in 1964, they dropped the first test batch of 1,000 Deer guns over North Vietnam to reinforce and strengthen the effectiveness of the guerrilla movement behind enemy lines. The guns were dropped in boxes. Inside was a colored manual, 3 cartridges, and the gun itself. The algorithm was simple. The guerrilla had to get it, load it, and hide it. Then, when encountering 1 or 2 Viet Cong, fire the gun and retrieve a full-fledged enemy weapon. For such an attack, one 9x19mm cartridge was quite sufficient. 2 spare cartridges were stored in a hollow grip, along with the ramrod, and were intended to be used in subsequent raids. It is unlikely that anyone would have had time to fire a second round anyway, considering such a complicated reloading procedure. Interestingly, the Deer Gun is not the only weapon in its class. The first disposable gun was created in the USA 80 years ago, and was called FP-45 Liberator. During World War II, it was dropped from airplanes into German-occupied territories, where guerrilla groups were operating. The pistol was nicknamed Woolworth Gun. This was the name of a supermarket chain that existed in the USA until the late 90s, which was famous for its low prices on all goods. The FP45 was a phenomenally cheap gun. It was so simple that in 2.5 months, only 300 workers managed to produce 1 million pieces. However, while the Liberator performed quite well during World War II, its descendant, the Deer gun, had very low effectiveness. Many guerrillas were distrustful of this weapon, which is understandable. One round to the barrel essentially means that it only got one shot. Therefore, they preferred to either have a normal gun or not to have one at all. And it was not so easy to hit the enemy. The aiming range of this gun is only 5-7 meters. This means that the enemy had to be approached almost at point-blank range. Working at such a close range is not always possible even for experienced military. What to say about ordinary people forced to take up arms? All these factors negated the effectiveness of the gun. For this reason, it was produced only about 1,000 pieces, and many of them were not even used. After the end of the Vietnam War, these guns dissolved all over the country and even made their way to other countries. According to one legend, there was a bank robbery in Cuba in 1975, during which one of the robbers was armed with a Deer gun. After the criminal was caught, he confessed that he had bought it from a guy who had brought it back from Vietnam. Then, this gun was seized and confiscated by American intelligence officers, and no one ever heard of it again. But this is more like a beautiful legend that goes on the heels of all unusual and sacred developments. That's all for today. Thank you all for watching. Thanks again to War Thunder for sponsoring today's video. The game is available for free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and mobile devices. Follow the link in description or pinned comment and get a huge bonus package, including premium vehicles, 100,000 silver lions, and 7 days of premium account. See you next week.